So now let's look at the accomplishment of the eras of the Aristotelians, those eras where Aristotelian reason dominated the culture. I mentioned earlier that they enhanced the quality of human life and thus happiness. Here are the details of those eras. Ancient Greece. The second one, Arab and Jewish world, around the year 1000 AD. The Renaissance and the Enlightenment. And lastly, the Haskalah, the 19th century Jewish Enlightenment. On the left, we have Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence. He converted John Locke's life, liberty, and property to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Very Aristotelian. Ancient Greece is the obvious era which we can term as Aristotelian. The achievements of the Greeks rested on their confidence in the power of man's mind, the power of reason. Their knowledge grew, knowledge of husbandry, viticulture, pottery making, commerce and salesmanship, finance, metals, weapons, and warfare. Aristotle introduced the idea of the specialized sciences. Based upon their identification and use of reason, the ancient Greeks made significant progress in mathematics, natural science, grammar, literary, and general history. The Aristotelian Greeks enhanced human life and brought happiness. So now let's look at another era of the Aristotelians. Around 1000 AD, Aristotelian Arabs became noted mathematicians, astronomers, and physicists, and they continued the work begun even before the fall of Rome, decoding and interpreting Greek scientific thought. We see here the Muslim Aristotelian philosopher Avicenna. Arabs and Jews as Aristotelians brought reason to the West, most importantly to Paris. The Jews in the 13th and 14th centuries, especially via their schools in southern France, spread Aristotelian reason. Jewish philosopher Maimonides' treatise on the art of logic was suitable for students and helped promote Aristotle's logic for centuries. We see two major Aristotelians here, the Muslim Averroes and the Jewish Maimonides. Let's now take a look at the Renaissance and the Enlightenment, two additional Aristotelian eras. These were based on a secular view of life, of reason. As a result of this wide acceptance of Aristotelian reason, we saw the following enhancements of human life: rediscovery of many Greek classics in the 14th century, the printing press, new discoveries around the world, Columbus, Magellan, and others, the flourishing of the art of Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and others. International trade increased. Universities such as the ones in Krakow, Bologna, Ferrara, and Padua grew. Tycho Brahe, Kepler, Galileo, and Isaac Newton identified the nature of the universe. There was a revolution in the study of human anatomy. There was new designs of microscopes and telescopes to magnify the human senses. There were advances in the field of medicine, and there were the first connections between electricity and magnetism. There was also the dissolving of the power of the monarchies and the church. Thomas Paine wrote in his book, The Age of Reason, and he identified that, quote, "It is nevertheless true that the age of ignorance commenced with the Christian system." He, of course, was referring to the Dark and Middle Ages. The final Aristotelian era we review is the Jewish Haskalah, an era which doesn't get its proper recognition. In the 13th century, Aristotelian Jewish philosopher and astronomer Gersonides laid down the general rule that the law, and he meant Jewish law, cannot prevent us from considering to be true that which our reason urges us to believe. And in the 1700s, Moses Mendelssohn was influenced by a Maimonidean approach, meaning the approach of Moses Maimonides, who we've mentioned earlier, that valued secular studies and used reason as the measure of all things. The Haskalah led to influential Jewish intellectuals, groundbreaking Jewish scientists, and highly productive Jewish businessmen. The Haskalah was inspired by the European Enlightenment, but had a Jewish character. Literally, Haskalah comes from the Hebrew word sekel, meaning reason or intellect, and the movement was based upon rationality. Most telling of the influence of Aristotle on the Haskalah. From the book Our Crowd, the story of 5 Jewish brothers, the Seligmans, who basically founded a great part of Wall Street. Quote, Temple Emmanuel in New York City became the symbol of the Jewish Germans' efforts to become one with progress. It was hailed by the New York Times as one of the leading congregations in the world, the first to stand forward before the world and proclaim the dominion of reason over blind and bigoted faith. Reason was the key, and now the temple seemed a beacon for a new era when all men, regardless of race or creed, would join in a universal communion of reason. The Haskalah led to the Jewish reform movement, and it's my hypothesis it led to Ayn Rand's sense of life to some large degree. Her father was a man of science. He was a pharmacist. She was raised in a Jewish reform family. And that's the end of this video. We'll move on to the next video and the main points of the Anti-Aristotelians.